I know. You guys are all waiting for this moment. Shaina, will you please join us on stage? The League of Women Voters chose to honor you, Shaina, for bringing their story, the story of the fight for women's suffrage, to the great Broadway stage. Your show brought audiences to their feet, ready to keep marching. The rallying cry, the theme, and we will all get to hear your performance of that finale at the end of today's show. We are all looking forward to that. Yes. Shaina, let's toot your horn. Won 2 Tony Awards for writing the show and the music. Such a talent. Best book, best score. She also starred in the role of Alice Paul. According to Theater Pizzazz, this makes her only the second woman in history to write the book, music, lyrics, and star in her own Broadway musical. Talk about talent. She has earned so many awards, and you can read her expanded bio on the e-journal, learn more about her amazing efforts and just her talent. So thank you so much, Shaina, for your work, inspiring so many people, your gift that you have shared. The League of Women Voters of the City of New York honors Shaina Taub for creating Suffs and a call to civic action. Congratulations.
I spoke.
So now please welcome to the stage Heidi Schreck. Heidi will be conducting the conversation with Shaina. This is a very unique opportunity. You certainly know Heidi's work, which includes the critically acclaimed play, What the Constitution Means to Me. Most recently, she created a new production of Chekhov's Uncle Vanya for the Broadway production at Lincoln Center. Some of her screenwriting credits include I Love Dick, Billions, Nurse Jackie, and Dispatches from Elsewhere. Incredible. We are delighted to have both you, Heidi, and Shaina engaged in conversation on our stage. Take it away.
Thank you.
Our mics, hello.
I think they're on. Thank you all for coming out today. I think you can give more money. I just want to say, go ahead. I give a little more money before we start here.
Yeah.
I am so honored to be here today. Shayna's one of my idols. I went to her show with my mom. We held hands and cried and laughed and cheered through the whole thing. And it was one of the more extraordinary nights in a Broadway theater I've ever had in my life. So this is a great honor. I have so many questions for Shaina. So I'm going to start, and we'll see where this goes, and then I think you'll be invited to ask questions as well. So the first thing I really want to ask you is because you've talked about Suffs as your life's work, which makes sense because it is a mammoth, beautiful piece of theater that I imagine took years and years to create. I will say, I think not everyone would have faith that creating a musical about women's suffrage could be a hit on Broadway. And I want to know when the idea first came to you and how you were like, yes, I can do this.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so excited to be here for League of Women Voters, and so Heidi is one of my idols, truly. If you have not seen her show, What the Constitution Means to Me, you can watch it on Amazon.
Yes.
Oh, please watch it. It's one of my favorite plays ever, ever, ever. Anyway, yes, so Suffs, actually the idea was brought to me by one of our co-lead producers on Broadway, who's actually here today, Rachel Sussman, who also worked on Heidi's show. She's an incredible visionary producer. And yeah, she came to me and we had coffee. We knew each other a little bit from college, but not that well. And she just sat me down. She was like, I have an idea. What do you know about the American women's suffrage movement? And I was kind of like, I don't really know a lot. I kind of like I was like, that one photo right behind us here of Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton. I was sort of like, the one anecdote we all get in high school, like there was a convention in the 19th century, but I really sort of realized sheepishly I didn't know very much at all. And then she handed me a book called Jailed for Freedom that I highly recommend, Page Turner, by Doris Stevens, the suffragist Doris Stevens. And she gave it to me to read, and she was like, there's a whole nother chapter to this history beyond Susan B. Anthony, beyond Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and I think that it could be a musical. And I just stayed up all night reading it and was so upset. I just couldn't, on so many levels it struck me of, first of all, it was so theatrical. Like the Suffs pioneered the use of visual rhetoric in American social movements, of wearing white as you are today so they would stand out in black and white photographs, of pageantry, of literal choreography, song, dance in the street. So all these big outdoor events that just felt very theatrical to me. And then also the women in the story that I was reading about, these very real women, just reminded me of my friends and the women I look up to. They were passionate, they were stubborn, they were flawed, and they were frustrated. They were full people. I think oftentimes, as female activists can be described as fearless or tireless, and we are, and also we tire, and we fear, and we are full human. So it just really excited me of, oh wow, there's this story. At the time, I'd sort of been searching for a story to tell, but I was adapting the Robin Hood legend as a gender flipped thing, because I was searching for a story about a group of young women taking on a system together. And when Rachel shared this with me, it was sort of, at the time, I was 25, and I was like, wow, this is like right in my own backyard, this uniquely American story that didn't make it to me in the public school system growing up, didn't make it to me in college, and I was hungry for it. So yeah, it just sort of fired on all cylinders.
Yeah, I ended up taking my niece back to it because I also realized, even though I wrote the whole show about my relationship to the Constitution, that there was so much about the story. I didn't know that I didn't learn growing up in school, that I feel like this is a very important part of history that actually doesn't get taught to all of us, and I was so grateful that it now exists in this form that's actually very fun to take in. So I recommend, it's going on tour across the United States, that maybe you send people to see it. Well, I'll tell you more about that at the end. I do want to say one of the things I was most struck by, you were quoted in an interview saying you wanted to interrogate the movement without undermining the movement, I think. And I feel like one of the reasons the show is so successful is that it's very honest about both the great triumphs of the women's suffrage movement in this country and its failings, particularly as it relates to race. And I was just very fascinated by how you allowed the story, I guess, to be true. I feel like one of the things when we learn American history in school, we don't always get taught like the truth. And I feel like I'm just so impressed by how honest you were about how wonderful and flawed all of these women were, and how honest you were about the discussions. We know that women got the vote with the 19th Amendment, but not all women got the vote with the 19th Amendment. And I just want to ask you, like, how you navigated that.
Absolutely. I mean, as a dramatist, as a playwright, as you know, you're searching for conflict. That is the lifeblood of a drama. So for me, early on, I was like, where should I locate the central dramatic conflict in this story? And I think what I wanted to avoid was the central dramatic conflict being between all of the Suffs, as if they were a unified, perfect group of women, and the president versus the bad president, or because I didn't want us to pat ourselves on the back and think that, oh wow, the activists of the past were these perfect golden warriors who did everything right. When in fact, the more juicy, dramatic tension to me was between the Suffs, between the generations of Suffs, oftentimes the more moderate older generation, oftentimes the more radical younger generation, across class. I mean, we could be here all day talking about all the movement of working women and labor unions and trade unions versus the very often, very wealthy, privileged, more front-facing white women of the suffrage movement along racial lines, as you said. And this idea of how can a group of people who have a similar goal, in theory, which is for, political enfranchisement and social freedom for American women have completely different ideas of how to achieve it. And how so often we've seen, we know this generation after generation, white women have sought their own freedom at the expense of black and brown women, and it happens generation after generation. And I just wanted to show, like, it behooves the systems of power for us as women to think, or especially as white women to think that we're gonna get our freedom at the expense of someone else.
Right.
And it's really something that we need to fight against. And and so I really was passionate about trying to show as many characters as I could, and all of their different ideas of how to get the vote, and specifically around this march. I'm so thrilled that we are honoring women from Delta Sigma Theta today, because yes.
Woo!
One of the big events that I depict in the show is that march in 1913 that, as they were saying, was the first public act of the sorority. And Mary Church Terrell, who's one of the characters in the show, was their original, I'm not sure the official title, but she was, she marched with them in the parade. And there's just so much to say, but it excited me to, I think that there's a myth that, I was sort of saying this, but activists of the past are, made of gold, and they're like perfect, when really they're just flesh and blood people like us. And that if we wait for a perfect coalition to try and take action, we'll never take action. So it excited me to depict that.
I want to ask you about one of my favorite songs, which is Great American Bitch. And my mom and I were both like dancing, and how you came to that song is a kind of, there are other great songs, but that was one of my favorites, and I want to ask
Thank you
about
so
it.
much.
Yeah.
Well, it's in the aftermath of this march, this parade, when they're kind of like celebrating that in a lot, we could be here all day talking about all the things that went on in the parade, but in the aftermath, a lot of it went well in the sense that it got a lot of press attention. And all the Suffs are sort of like celebrating their win. And I always like the idea of, at the march and the parade, in addition to some of it going well, mobs of drunken men assaulted and jeered them on the street. And I like the idea of taking one of the insults from the men jeering on the street and them sort of reclaiming it, And I was like, so what is just a nice evergreen epithet to hurl at a woman that's not gonna feel too, I didn't want it to feel too contemporary, too old-timey, and I was just like, bitch. Bitch is just the gift that keeps on taking, right? It's just it just felt like fun, the idea for them to sort of reclaim that insult and make it a source of celebration. So,
Yeah, I found myself, even my mom's, 80, and she's a little, she has quite a lot of decorum, but she was really into it. So
good. I know eventually they're going to do Suffs in high schools, and we've kind of been debating.
We're I feel like
I know exactly. I'm like, which doesn't pack the same punch, but we'll see. Yeah. Great American Trail.
Speaking of that, I do have a big question to ask you just about the time we're in right now, because I think another thing that felt so powerful about the show to me was, again, there's a kind of grief running through it, just in terms of so much. They achieved so much, and yet there was still so much work to do, and there were things that they didn't achieve, like the Equal Rights Amendment, for example. And there's just this sense of hope in the play that is not toxic positivity, that is not we pretend like everything is okay, or we live in denial. That feels like a true, genuine, fierce kind of hope. And I wonder, in part because you acknowledge all the bad stuff, and I wonder, I guess I'm asking you now, how in this moment are you locating a hope for yourself? How are you marching on in this moment?
Absolutely. It's so true. It's I think the ability to do civic engagement work and all the things that everyone in this room does perpetually requires us to hold the contradiction that we've come far and there's still far to go. That is always true. It's true today in March 2025. It was true in 1920. It was true 100 years before that. It'll be true 100 years from now, that we have to hold both things in our hands. And there's a quote that I love that I just offered to you that really kind of sums up how I think about this. Is by the writer Maria Popova. It's hope without critical thinking is naivete, but critical thinking without hope is cynicism. Isn't that good? What a good distillation, right? I can't take credit. Please don't clap for me. The clap for Maria Popova. But like that you need to hold both in your hands. And I think that the key, what I'm trying to remind myself, it's not, no one of us is going to come in and fix everything. In fact, it's like hubristic to think that we could do, and that is what Alice Paul has to learn in the show. It's like it's not any one person, but that I just quoting others that I look to, but I heard Senator Cory Booker say the other day, don't let your inability to do everything undermine your determination to do something, to take one small action. And that we see it right now, they, the proverbial they, I think you all know who I'm talking about, want us to think that our individual actions and our individual words and our communal gatherings, something today, doesn't matter. This is why they're attacking language, right? They're attacking education, they're attacking the arts, because they know how powerful these tools are for our sense of hope and our sense of community and our sense of the future that we all want to build. And so for me, I'm finding hope, like in our young friend from Wagner. What's your name? But sorry, I'm putting you on the spot. This amazing young intern. What's your name? Lily. I get hope in hearing Lily today get up and talk about how at her college she is organizing young people to vote. Like how amazing is that? I'm so excited for you, and I'm just rooting for you. And I think for all of us folks in this room who may be older than our friend Lily, including myself, it's just like, when we're feeling down, it's like it's incumbent on us to, if our young people have faith in these systems and are dedicating their time and their energy and their goodwill to trying to preserve democracy, we don't get to give up. We don't get to give up. Yeah.
I was thinking about the fact that Suffs ends kind of right as the work of the League of Women Voters begins, I think.
Yeah.
And there's a character in Suffs. Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Carrie Chap. Sorry, I don't mean
Yeah,
to.
no.
I'm so delighted. I'm just like tickled to be here because for those of you who have seen Suffs opens. Thank you. With a luncheon. She literally, Carrie Cat, played by the amazing Jen Colella, Carrie Cat, one of the founders of the League of Women Voters, comes on a stage, like literally we have a little platform like this in the show, and she's like, welcome to the, what's the line? National Association of Women's Suffrage 65th annual luncheon, which always got a laugh, because like how many years have we been doing this, But yeah, that is the organization that she began, so there's just such a cool link.
Yeah, and I guess I was thinking about the fact, just in terms of the moment we're in now, and what you highlight in the show, I think, which is like the work of this organization hasn't changed and won't change, right? It's like the hard, patient, persistent, daily maintenance work of taking care of democracy.
Yes.
And I feel like that's the thing we're in contrast to right now, and it's a thing that can feel small, but is actually the most powerful thing we can do.
Yeah.
Is to keep investing in this patient work of democracy. And so I just feel very honored to be here today, celebrating this organization that does that, and all the people we've just honored who devote their lives to that. It is the thing we can do no matter what else is happening. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Amen.
I do want to ask you one thing about your show, because I talked to you a little bit about it backstage.
Yes.
But so the tour starts in Seattle, right? So
Yes.
it's going to
Yes,
Seattle,
this
and then
fall.
all over the country?
Yeah, it'll go, I think most of the route is announced. It's going to LA, it's going to San Francisco, it's going to Boston, it's going all over the country. I think the route is at suffsmusical.com. Is that right, Rachel? Yeah. So yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to that. And we filmed it for PBS, which will be airing, because for me that's what I want these stories, these historical stories, to be accessible to as many young people as possible. It's why it's so, like your play as well, like the more I think we can make the arts open to not just the people and the families who can afford the expensive Broadway ticket, like actually really, as much as I'm proud of our Broadway run and I'm so thrilled that it happened, I'm most excited for these opportunities, whether it's on PBS or eventually when high schools start to do the show, where just this story can be available to more people.
Yeah, I want to ask you, like, because you have a
Yeah.
plan to, I think, is it colleges? What's the 10?
Oh, I can't. That'll be announced soon.
Sorry,
But
there's a very
it's
exciting
okay.
announcement coming up.
But I can say I'm partnering
mic.
with Music Theater International, which is a licensing company, to eventually and soon like be out there for schools and community theaters to do it, because that's what I grew up with. I grew up in rural Vermont. And for me, like doing my school show, I did cabaret in high school. And like, I mean, I was like the only Jew in my school. In Vermont, it was like me and Bernie Sanders were the two Jews. And Uncle Murdy. And but for me, like being in cabaret and I learning about World War II and the rise of Nazi, like it just like it opened up this portal into my identity through a musical that I was getting to do for free at my public high school. Didn't need to go to New York, didn't need a fancy ticket. And so it just really excites me. That's what I always wanted, is for us, for a new generation of girls to get to grow up playing Ida B. Wells, playing Inez Milholland, playing Mary Church Terrell, playing Alice Paul, and having, and hopefully that being a catalyst for them to learn more and then learn more about who they want to become.
Yep.
Yeah.
I can't sing, which is why I just had to talk for 2 hours on Broadway. But I want my girls love singing. I have twin girls who are 5, and so I'm just hoping by the time they're in high school they can be.
Oh yeah, I love that. Oh my God, what a dream. Yeah. Yes.
I have a couple more questions for you, unless I'm not sure when we want to start taking audience questions. But oh great, perfect.
Oh great, yeah.
I guess my next question has to do with the power of, you referenced it a little bit already, but some people say like art and politics are not good bedfellows, which is odd to me because I think obviously everything is politics, and clearly we have a history of incredible art that kind of makes direct political take stands, I guess. And I just wonder how you view the role of, like, you're an activist who's also an artist, and I wonder how you view that.
I think what the arts can do is humanize a dry political issue. Like, not everyone is going to go through and read hundreds of pages of proposed legislation or a bill, but they might go watch an episode of their favorite Netflix show, and if the bill that they didn't read was about rights for veterans or something, and then they see a Netflix show with a character who's a veteran, and their heart opens, and they're like, how are we treating veterans? Like, or whatever it may be, fill in the blank, that I hope, even though, I think Suffs probably wore its political leanings on its sleeve to a degree, and the time can determine whether what I'm about to say is what result the show does. But I think when a play or a musical is at its best, it's asking questions, not providing answers. That actually it's not for the theater to tell you how to feel or tell you what to do, but hold up a mirror to the past and a window to the future, and just like have you go and make you think. That's what I hoped in, creating dramatic scenes between Alice and Ida or Carrie, these ideological differences between my characters, that we don't feel so easily on the right side, that it makes you ask, oh, if I were in that situation, what would I do? If I were torn between, standing up for someone in my community versus standing up for my own family, or whatever these various situations, these hard choices we find ourselves in as citizens and as people, I think like a theater can sort of provoke that thought. And theater is not where change is made, actually, that is at the ballot box, that is in the courts, that is and everywhere else. But in theater causes us to think, and also provides, I think, a context in difficult political times for communities to feel feelings out loud together. We were running Suffs in the lead up to the election and the aftermath to the election, and truly it was as loud and electric in there in the weeks before the election as it was the weeks after, because I think people were all isolated on our phones, we're all in our little vacuums, we're all scrolling the news, but in a theater, we're all there live in person together, and we are allowed to cheer and cry and celebrate and mourn and watch humans on stage. We get to like look at ourselves and think about ourselves, and so I think it provides, like I like to call it, like a civic temple. Like it just provides an opportunity for us to reflect as a community. Yeah.
It feels is like a direct line from what theater was for in the first place, right? In
Right.
terms of like Greek civic life, it was a political arena that people came together
Exactly, yes.
to like figure out what they wanted their culture to be.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, the thing of like embodying, like you played Alice Paul brilliantly. What did you, like taking that into your own body, was there anything surprising you learned about either the movement or Alice herself in playing her night after night that my girls will learn when they play?
Oh
you
my
know?
goodness, what a
Yeah.
great question. I don't think I've ever been asked. I mean, just like I think, man, what a great question. I mean, I think she was really struggling with something that I think about myself that I think the show kind of helped me dig into, which is the tension between work life and activism life and personal life and family life and the like decisions of marriage and motherhood. And I think like initially I hadn't included there, you know, there's a song in the show called Is It Worth It, where Alice is sort of like debating whether or not to get married and have kids, or if that's gonna, which she ultimately, as we know from history, decided not to do. And it's a moment that I had never included in the show until the Broadway iteration, because I had sort of been like, the show is not about that, it's about like working women, you know, it's not about their relationships and their blah. And a mentor of mine was kind of like, yeah, but every human woman has those debates inside her head, and if we don't get to like be in there with Alice while she's debating those things, she won't really feel like a full person, which was just huge for me, both as a writer and a performer, because I've sort of been like, I really want to show that we're smart and we're about more than, you know, the internal like feminist like thing, right, you know? But I think actually performing that song every night and allowing Alice, and by extension Shaina, to like wonder about those things and not make me feel like I'm any less of a fighter or whatnot, because of course we all we have full lives, we want to try and do everything, you know. And it was wild to sort of consider that Alice in 1913 was sitting there being like, if I have kids, will I really be able to do everything I want in the movement? And here I'm sitting here in 2025 like having a similar debate in my head, and like I enjoy in every possible metric more rights than Alice had. You know what I mean? That myself as a Jewish woman 100 years ago, like every independence I have in my life would not have been possible almost 100 years ago. And yet that tension is still very real.
Yeah.
So I think just getting to sort of like stew in that every night was good for me.
That's remarkable. Yeah.
Ladies, amazing. I love this duo, right?
Don't stay here all day.
How dynamic and inspiring and all the things. Really love the two of you together, and how disarming this conversation was. It was just so organic, and it felt like we were invited in. Thank you. Thank you. I know you guys have questions. I know you do, and you have an opportunity to ask them. So I'd like to send our questions to the floor.
I have a question. After seeing your fabulous play 4 times, is it true, including also once at the Public, is it true that it took you like a really long time, kind of like getting the right to vote, to bring this to Broadway? And, you know, I saw your play too, which was fabulous. But is it true that there's persistent discrimination against women or feminist theater in Broadway?
I don't know. I mean, look, there's a perpetual need for more diverse stories to be told, and like we definitely need and always need more women's stories and more stories, especially of women of color, in our media. And also, it takes, no matter what your show is, it takes a lot of really hard work and persistence to get all the way to Broadway. I never expected it to come easily. I never felt entitled to it. I never thought that it would be an easy road to take an original musical all the way. I mean, from that coffee that I had with Rachel, well, I guess it was Thai food, but with Rachel was in 2014. We were in our mid-20s, and then we opened on Broadway almost exactly 10 years later in 2024. But thanks. But and it took, I don't think either of us thought it would be simple. I mean, it took a lot to write it and to get people on board, and yet like the rigor was part of it. You know, I think in order to the systems of getting it, it is difficult to get a theater in Broadway, and I could say a lot about how I wish that the government actually subsidized the arts in this country, and that actually it wasn't just a few capitalist landlords that ran all the Broadway theaters like any other capitalist structure, and that it is a model that is based on scarcity. There are only so many Broadway theaters, and yet that's the system that we wanted to participate in. It's sort of like the Suffs, right? Do you work within the system or do you work without, and we, I think, wanted to work within that system because we knew that a Broadway show, for better and worse, is the way that a piece of art becomes a part of the national consciousness. It's how you get a cast album, a CD, well not, there were CDs when I had them, that make it to the kid like me in rural Vermont who listened to the cast album and became into, so we knew that was part of it. So look, we had a lot of setbacks and stops and starts. There was a pandemic in the middle of the whole thing, which was a hard time universally for theater artists in the city and the country. It was a long road. But also, I had, so many people had faith, and I think it was just a really beautiful. It just brought so many people out of the woodwork that wanted to give their money and support this happening. It really, I felt, I come out of my Broadway experience not feeling cynical about it, but feeling like that there's a hunger and there's a need for stories like this. And I hope that this spurs a ton more. What I always said is, my Suffs is just my one slice. It's just my 2.5 hour imperfect distillation through my own personal lens of this story, when really it is just the tiniest tip of the iceberg of the story. I mean, you could do a 9-season prestige HBO show about Delta Sigma Theta alone. You know what I mean? About Mary or any of these, Doris, Rouge, and I just cover 7 little years. There's 72 years. There's just so many more stories. So my biggest hope with Suffs is that it could open a door for more of the stories to be told, whether it's in theater or in film and television.
Absolutely.
I'll also
Anybody
say,
else?
Shaina was also, the first woman to win a Tony Award for writing both lyrics and music to a musical. Yes, this is amazing. I also will say, I think there is another answer to that, which is yes, it is. So there's an amazing producer here, Rachel Sussman, who produced Suffs and produced my play, and I think it's because of women like her that we're starting to make changes on Broadway. One of the reasons I agreed to do my show on Broadway, I was very scared because it didn't seem like really an obvious choice for Broadway, is at the time they were talking to me about moving there would have been no shows on Broadway written by women, and I was like, well, even if it closes in a day, I guess I should do it. So I think that it's thanks to people like Rachel that's changing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we're all the better for it, especially with how you guys have opened doors for so many women. Anybody else?
Yeah, so I'm going to read this question from Rhoda Kleinman.
Amazing.
It's, will you do another show and include Ernestine K. Rose?
Oh, yes. I mean, someone should definitely write the Ernestine K. Rose musical. She's awesome. I think I'm going to take a little break from historical musicals, but I am writing about Jews, so I'm going to. But that is a great idea. She was awesome. Exactly. I think my greatest dream is that, a high schooler is going to hear Suffs and then want to write the Ernestine Rose musical. Because, for me, who knows the musical Ragtime? Yeah, so good.
Yes.
I was so obsessed with Ragtime growing up, obsessed with that cast album. And for me, I was obsessed with the one song called The Night That Goldman Spoke at Union Square, which was about the Jewish activist Emma Goldman. She's a minor character in Ragtime, just has that one song and one other song. But I was just I got fixated on her. And even though Suffs is not about Emma Goldman, it kind of opened up this other, I think there's a line from me as a 10-year-old hearing that song to eventually writing Suffs. And so I just hope, that's why, again, I tried to include as many characters as I could, even though every single historical character I portray in Suffs could merit their whole own musical. It was important to me to even have some women who, the nature of a show is their lead characters and supporting characters, that even the supporting characters, that they could be there to inspire that, it's why, it's so. I'm rambling now, but it's important to have a cast album. I hope someone writes the Ernestine Rose musical. I will be first in line to see it. Yeah.
One last question.
Hi. My name's Noah. I've seen Suffs. And I think we're like talking about diversity and stuff. One of the big and kind of maybe more overlooked aspects of Suffs that I really love is that it's an all-female cast. So I was wondering, was that kind of something that you stumbled upon, or did you know from the beginning that you wanted it to be an all-female cast, like with icons like Grace McLean playing Woodrow Wilson, and like all of these like big important male characters, but being played by female actors?
Yeah, I agree that Grace McLean is an icon. She's absolutely incredible. Thank you for the question. And yeah, it was, the all-female cast was not a part of my original concept. I always thought, like, you know, wanted to make sure that Suffs was a show for everyone, that a whole community theater or school could put on with roles for everybody. And it was my director, Lee Silverman's idea, actually. And honestly, I was resistant at first because I didn't want Suffs to be pigeonholed as just like a girls' show, or I wanted it to feel, you know, but then in our early readings, we gave it a try, and really was like having Grace as Woodrow Wilson and kind of the juxtaposition of that, and the fun kind of to be had at his expense, to have a woman play him, and it just, and the power of having a group of all female voices, I was sold on it eventually. And so, and it was so powerful, right, of like this untold chapter of American history that we got to tell it for ourselves in this Broadway production. I'm so proud that we had this incredible all-female cast. And I'm so excited now for like future productions. I'm like, cast boys, cast non-binary kids, cast trans kids, cast everybody. That like these stories of American social movements belong to us all, and that we need good young men in this fight just as much as anyone else. Yeah.
Very quickly, for both of you ladies, I wanted to ask a question because I'm a journalist, and
Yes.
what we always want to do is kind of put a button on the story, kind of turn the page, what is next? So I would love to know, I mean, I couldn't help but notice you said that you were done with historic musicals. So for both of you ladies, I'd love to know what's next.
Oh, sure. I mean, I'm so excited now that Suffs, the writing of Suffs took so many years, as I've said, that I'm looking forward to this next chapter. Really, Suffs' life has just begun, like, and to be sort of with Rachel and our creative team to sort of be now like ambassadors of the show that's going to tour and PBS in the schools and communities. And I'm just excited to now get it out in the world in the way that I always dreamed. Nice. So I'm doing that, and yeah, and I'm writing some new musicals and collaborating. I think like writing a show alone, as Heidi knows, it is like incredible and gratifying and rewarding, and also extremely hard and lonely. And so I'm, yeah, just in an era of collaborating with folks, and I'm excited about that.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm working on a couple of things. I'm writing a book that's due in December. Well, it was due 4 years ago, but now it's due in December. And strangely, I'm adapting She-Ra and the Princesses of Power.
What?
A live-action version of it with this amazing director, Nikki Castle, who directed Watchmen. And that's what I'm going to make. But hopefully my girls can watch that one day.
Oh man, as an OG millennial who had She-Ra and her Dark Horse,
Yes.
that is so exciting.
Thank you.
I will be checking for it. Thank you both so much. Thank you guys. Thank you everyone for coming, our honorees, our amazing volunteers.